Okay, so I have graphed a bunch of points, and they did not line up properly. That is not how a parabola looks. This is actually called an absolute value graph. It makes a V shape. All right, but to get a parabola, I would want this. Oh, hold on. I would want it to look a little differently here. So I'm going to drag some of these points into the right spots for a parabola. Let me see. Over 1, up 1. Over 2, up 4. Over 3, up 9. Now I want you to just think what I was just doing there. Over 1, up 1. Over 2, up 4. Do you get 2 is getting squared? 2 squared is 4. And over 3 spots and up 9. And let's see. From there, it's actually here. Okay. That is a parabola. Do you see how it's got a little bit of a curve to it? Now, if you graph most of your points right, and then one point is like over here somewhere, it'll be pretty obvious that something's wrong, and it's probably just that you graphed one of your points wrong. All right, so that's what a parabola is supposed to look like, is back to here. Okay, so there's 2 skills involved here. One is graphing points, and all of us make mistakes. Sometimes I go left instead of right. I mean, I make mistakes in my harder class all the time. In this class, I don't make as many mistakes just because I'm a math teacher, and this algebra is kind of something I'm really used to. I've done it for a long time. So here's another place people make their mistakes. Y equals x squared minus 1. And especially if there's a negative here. Oh, that messes up people really bad. Because they don't know whether they should make it negative and then square it, or they should square it first and then make it negative. And there's this extra negative running around that just drives them crazy. But here is a typical question, and usually these numbers are already filled in for you. And I just want you to see why this is tricky. It's not because it's like super hard. It's because there's so many steps. So I'd like you right now to rewrite this as what I like to call a skeleton equation. I replace the x with an empty spot. Would you please write the skeleton equation? It's kind of like it has the bones, but it's got empty spots, like that's like a rib cage where I could put something in there. All right, so would you please write down this top line here, the skeleton equation. Now, if I needed to be right, if I were you, and your life depended on being right on a problem, here's what you'd want to do. You'd want to take this number and put it into the problem like this with the skeleton equation. I would bet you money that you guys did it all in your head. You go, okay, to this, and then I square it, and then I add it, and at least you probably did a bunch of steps in your head, and then you write down the answer. And Mrs. Nolan was telling me that there was a lot of people who were getting points wrong. So if your life depended on it, you write the skeleton equation, you drop in this number, and then you take one little step at a time. Yes? Nope. Okay. You got to stay with me for the lesson part here. So that could happen before class. Now, this is really important. What has to be first? This negative making a positive, or this getting squared, because it'll totally change the answer. What comes first? The squaring or the 2 negatives? The squaring is the first thing. You know why? Because there is an order for math. There's like a rules. Parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, then add, then subtract. Do you get that those 2 negatives are not parentheses and they're not exponents? Parentheses and exponents get to go first. That's why this part has to go first. All it takes is one little mistake like that. Kid forgets, thinks, oh, cancel by 2 negatives. They'll think it's positive 3 squared, which is 9. That answer is not 9. Okay. Stay with me. That makes positive 9. Then you put the negative on it. So it's all about the order. All right, so that one was negative 9 and then minus 1. Again, you got a chance to screw up. Negative 9 minus 1. A lot of kids see a minus and they go, oh, 9 minus 1's got to be 8. Answer is an 8. Say it. Negative 10 is correct, sir. I just showed you really long and slow, painfully how to do that one. Would you please try using the skeleton equation that you made to put in the -2? This is this little thing with the empty spot. That's called the skeleton equation.
No, but when you do -3 times -3, when you do -9, now positive.
No. Here, okay. You were right so far. -3 squared was +9. But now you put the negative on it. There's an extra negative on the outside there. That made it -9. And then you take away 1, and like he said, it's -10. Okay, would you please use your skeleton equation and just put in the -2 and see what you think we should have. You got to do it in the right order. All right, I'm going to pause for a second while I come around and check you to see if you put the -2 in properly. All right, so that one came out to -5. I'm proud of you. I was amazed how many people got it right. +4, then this becomes negative, makes it -4. -4 and a -1, -5. All right. So once I get a whole bunch of points like this, it's really not that bad. I just got to graph -3, -10, and -2, -5. All right, I know you don't have graph paper, okay? But I know that you can make a little x, y, and estimate about how far over and about how far and put a dot. Everybody graph these two spots, -3, -10, and -2, -5. Just those two. Just graph them, like if you think it's here and here, awesome. Just graph where you think -3, -10, and -2, -5 are. And I'm going to come around and check that part. Because I can tell you know how to stick numbers in now. Now I'm checking to see if you can graph. Okay, for my quick check, it seems like you are understanding. So, your homework for today is, I know she sent you home with one. She said she did a bunch of them with you. And then she sent you home with like just one of them to do. Well, today you're going to have to do a lot more than one because I think you get it. So you're just going to have these 6 problems, okay? And I will do at least one of them with you, but you can handle it. I mean, we have more than a half an hour left. I think you'll be fine. All right, I'm going to pause for a second. We're doing number 1 off the worksheet called Quadratic Equation. No, Graphing Parabolas, Day 3. There we go. Graphing Parabolas, Day 3. All right. I'm pausing for a second. And I'm going to make this the skeleton equation. This is problem number 1 off the worksheet called Graphing Parabolas, Day 3. And the skeleton equation has an empty spot there. You do not have to use this, but if you get it wrong and don't use this, it's your own fault. I really think it helps. All right, so now I'm going to drop in a few numbers off of, here you go, off of number 1. It asks you to put in -3. Okay, I can't have you talking right now. You're going to have to move up here. Then you can move back there later when it's work time. Okay, so we have -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2. Okay, so I'm going to stick in -3 first. So, somebody help me out with this one. He thinks it's -10. Anybody got a different answer they think it is?
I think it's -11.
I got -11s all over the place. That's a +9, but then this makes it -9. And -2, -11 is correct. All right. Now let's stick in another one. Say R in the back corner. Tell me what happens when I put in a -2.
Yes.
What's this part?
4.
And then?
-4.
Yep, and then?
-6.
-6 is correct. Excellent. Then I'm going to graph those 2 points. -3, -11 goes, oh my gosh, goes off the screen. That's okay. I'm going to put a dot. You should too, just off the page where it would be if there was an 11. -2, -6 goes right here. And then hopefully, eventually, this thing's going to be an upside down parabola, and you'll see that it goes something like that kind of a thing when it's all done. But let's do a couple more points. -1 goes in. Okay, M. If I put in a -1, tell me what happens. Negative 1 turns to 1 because you square it, and then, nope, then you do this. Negative 1, and then put that with it. Negative 3 is correct. So, negative 1, negative 3, and that's right here. And now the thing's starting to make its turn, just starting to turn to the right just a little bit. Now I'm going to put in a 0. Zeros are my favorite thing because when I put in a 0, it just turns this whole part into 0, but not everything. That whole part turns to 0. And then 0 minus 2 is negative 2. There, I did that one. 0 comma negative 2. Oh, it's starting to make a sharp turn. See how it's turning to the right a little bit? Now, in a second, it's going to start going down again. So I could even, if I was smart about noticing the pattern, go, I bet it goes here. And then I bet it goes the same thing it did here. Over a couple and down a bunch. Do you see what I'm trying to say? It's going to probably go there. But I'm going to check it just to be sure so I'm not just making stuff up. If I put in a 1, I'm going to put a 1 right here. I got 1, and then I make it negative 1 with this thing on the outside. Negative 1 minus 2 is negative 3. And yeah, I was right. 1, negative 3. That's one of the spots. Catch up with us, please. We're on number 1. We're done with almost all the points. And then I'm going to put in a 2. And the 2 squared makes 4. Make it negative 4. And then a minus 2. Did you get negative 6? Raise your hand if you got negative 6 at the end. Or maybe I was just ahead of you. A few of you did. All right. So 2 comma negative 6 over 2 down 6. Dot goes right there. And it's not a perfect graph with symmetry, but it starts making its turn, and I can assume that it would go down one more down there. All right, so there's my upside down parabola. Just for future reference, the reason it's upside down is because there's a negative in front. Did you know that negative in math usually means opposite? And what that means is opposite direction. If it's in the very front, it means the parabola isn't going to be normal like a U shape. It's opposite direction. Turns into like a mountain shape. So the negative in front is your key to knowing that this thing's going to be upside down. All right, so there's working you through number 1. Your job is to do the rest of them. We will pick one to skip. I usually have a skip number 6, and it is the last one, so you may skip the very last one. There's only 5 on here? Okay, wait a minute. How many are on the front? There's only 2 on the front? Oh, man. I suppose you can skip number 5. All right, get to work.